Hey, Paul Niyama, ProfessionallyStrong.com, and I want to help you become the best and strongest version of yourself. Now, if you've been to a gym for any length of time, I know you've seen those people. They're making some crazy mistakes with their workouts. And some of these mistakes, very, very obvious. Others, not as much. But if you are making any of these mistakes with the way you work out, it's costing you time and it's costing you results. So, I'm going to break down the 5 biggest mistakes that I see people making in the gym in this 5-part series. I'll be covering a new mistake in each video, and I'll be giving you some solutions to fix it. And remember, there is a link to the PDF notes in the description down below, so click on that. Now, I hope you're not making any of these mistakes, but if you are, don't worry, because every single one of them can be fixed. And hey, I've made all of them at some point in my life, and I've managed to correct them all and see much better results because of it. So in this video, part 1, I'm going to start with the one that stands out the most to me, and that is going way too heavy. Now, when someone is going way too heavy, even a total beginner will notice and say, "Damn!" So if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know I'm all in favor of lifting heavy. Yeah, everyone has their own strength levels, so what might be heavy for me might not be heavy for you, and what might be heavy for you might not be heavy for someone else. Going heavy is a very relative term, very subjective, and I think lifting as heavy as you can within the parameters of your goal is very, very beneficial. Even if your goal is to lose weight or to increase your stamina, I do feel that you need to push yourself every so often, but I don't mean that you should be going as heavy as possible every single workout, every single exercise, because at some point, there is a point of diminishing returns where you actually start to see less results because you are using too much weight. You know, even the elite strength athletes, they don't max out on every single workout. So if the elite of the elite, as far as strength goes, aren't maxing out every workout, there's no reason why anyone else should, because eventually the body won't be able to adapt quick enough and it'll start to break down. So overtraining and burnout aren't the only risks that you run when you go too heavy. You also run a higher risk of injury with every single rep, especially if the weight you're using is outside of your body's capability. Every exercise is going to have a benefit and a risk. And whenever you go heavier than you should, you increase the risk and you actually decrease the benefit. I'm going to talk about how that happens in just a little bit. But I think the number one thing that it comes down to is the control that you have over the weight. Can you control the weight? Perform the exercise at the right tempo? Maintain your form throughout the exercise? If not, then you're probably going too heavy and you need to lighten it so you can work on activating the correct muscles in order to do the exercise safely. So let's talk about a few examples of when people are using too much weight. So let's start with those people that go so heavy that they need to get a spot on every single rep. You've seen them, right? You've seen them in the gym. Maybe you are one. I hope you're not. Maybe you used to be one in the past. I know I was when I was a youngin', but I've learned some since then. And you've seen these guys, right? They load up the weight. They would load up so much weight that immediately they get buried and their friend needs to jump in and spot them. So before I get into it, let me talk about a couple exceptions, because there are a few legitimate times when you're going to need a spot. That's not what I'm talking about. The spotter is safe. And I'm also not talking about the planned variations of exercises that incorporate things like force reps or negatives. I'm not talking about that either. Those are just different workout variations. I am talking about the people that go way too heavy. Every single set, every single rep, their spotter is helping them. And there's always a question when they're doing this. How much weight are they actually lifting? How much are their muscles actually working? And how can they gauge their progress if they're not controlling the weight and someone is helping them with their spot? Well, they can't gauge it. And that is one of the big issues with always getting a spotter. You know, when you get a big spot, there's always a question of how much you're lifting and how much is a spotter lifting. And if you're always getting the spot, you can't really track your progress to see if you're getting better. Now, who are the biggest offenders of this? Well, over the years, I've seen this happen a lot. And most of the times when I see it, it's beginners. And usually, but not always, it's male high school athletes working out in groups. They got their friends there. They have some knowledge. They want to get stronger. but they're not working out in the most effective ways to build their muscle. That's how I was back in high school, just wanted to go heavy, so don't be that way. So let's talk about those people that use so much weight, they end up swinging the weights around and using momentum in order to do the lift. Now, the thing about it is, when you're using momentum, your muscles don't need to work as hard because the momentum is actually lifting some of the weight and doing some of the work. So there are exceptions again, so let me get into those first, because there are some times when momentum is okay, such as explosive exercises. And this is like your Olympic lifts. And then you also have these cheat variations where you use momentum to squeeze out a few extra reps and allow you to keep working even after your muscles have reached failure. But this is usually done after you've done some reps with good control. But again, all of these, those are the exceptions, not the norm. Most of the time, you're going to get the most benefit from using strict form because, again, it comes down to control. If your muscles are controlling the weight, they're working. If momentum is controlling the weight, then your muscles, they're not working as hard. Now, another thing about momentum, it takes more force in order to get the weight back under control. And this can open you up to a higher risk for injury, especially if you're using the momentum because the weight is too heavy in the first place. And most of the time when injuries occur, it's when you're trying to decelerate the weight, which happens when you're trying to bring the weight back under control. So again, momentum, not the best thing when working out. So the last example of this is when you're lifting so heavy that you don't really feel the muscle that you're trying to work. So let me first start out with exceptions to this because it is pretty big, and that is when you're training for strength, especially with big compound movements like a squat or a bench or a deadlift. You know, if you're lifting heavy on one of these multi-joint exercises, you might not really feel any specific muscles working because there's so many muscles working at once. Plus, there's a lot of times when you're focused on strength and you're going heavy, the primary focus at that point is not really on the muscle contraction. It's more focused on just lifting that weight. And if you're training for strength, it's fine. But if you really want to give that muscle the stimulus it needs so that it can grow, which also helps with burning fat, you're going to need to lift the kind of weight that really allows you to focus on contracting the muscles. Now, for this, you might need to go a lot lighter than you think, especially on some of these accessory exercises, so you can really target the muscle that you're trying to focus on. Because if you go too heavy, you're going to get a lot of other muscles involved that compensate, and you're not really going to focus on that muscle that you're really trying to target. How do you know if you're going too heavy? Like I said at the beginning, in my mind, it all comes down to one word, and that is control. Even with some of the exceptions that I mentioned previously, you still need to be able to control the weight. So the main solution for this problem, pick a weight that you could keep under control. If you can't control the weight, if your form is all jacked up, you shouldn't be doing it, plain and simple. Put your ego at the door, learn the right way to do the exercise. You might need to go light at first. Learn the correct positioning of your body, and once you have that, then, and only then, should you start adding the weight and building in that progressive overload. Remember, going heavy is good, but going too heavy will be less effective. So this was the first of the 5 videos. We got 4 more coming up on the common mistakes that a lot of people make. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and join the notification squad by clicking on that bell, and you will get notified as soon as the next video goes up. If you want daily tips and motivation, check out my Instagram at professionallystrong.com. Remember, there are show notes on the website professionallystrong.com, and there's a link to that in the description down below. I'll see you in part 2. I'm Paul Niyama, and I want to help you become the best and strongest version of yourself.